About to leave, already packing. Come with me, I'm not really asking. We'll get away to a place where we don't know. About to see the world in action, what we can be, life with no distractions. We'll get away, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out. Die with my own doubts. Be free with me. Let's be free with me. Not looking back, eyes on the freeway, Bonnie and Clyde, a classic cliche. We're on the run, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. I'm done living life with the lights out. Die with my own doubts. Be free.
I've improved by a whole grade.
I've improved
by a whole grade.
by a whole grade.
By a whole grade.
My teacher isn't just Mr. Maddock. It's a whole teaching team made up of James, Mike and Marta.
My classroom's all about doing and applying. My days standing at the front of the classroom with a PowerPoint are long gone.
I master every concept by learning at my own pace.
I spend 100% of my class time interacting and supporting individual students.
I move on only when the moment is right for me, not the whole class.
I know what each and every student is mastering and struggling on at every moment.
I know exactly what I need to learn next, and I can go back and review material at any time.
I spend my teaching time supporting and inspiring, not planning, delivering and marking.
I can learn from anywhere at any time.
I can switch off when school closes, knowing they are learning from the best.
My teacher has my homework marked before I get to class.
I set every piece of homework at the start of the year.
I'm 2 weeks ahead of my expected progress.
I can track everyone's progress with a swipe of a finger.
I can track my own progress and set my own targets.
I now have time to focus on developing the skills of every learner in my classroom.
I know exactly what it means to explain, evaluate and analyse, and I'm not afraid of any exam.
My lessons are now far more about the skills and the application, not just the content itself.
I've completely remodeled what it means to be a teacher in my classroom.
Hola, buenas tardes y bienvenidos a la octava sesión de revisión. Hoy es jueves 10 de mayo de 2018 y es la 1 de la tarde. Yo soy Marta y conmigo tenemos en los controles a James. Hola James.
Hola.
Hola, buenas tardes. ¿Cómo estás?
Sí, muy bien.
Muy bien. ¿Preparado para esta sesión de revisión?
Casi.
Casi, muy bien. Hoy en esta sesión de revisión vamos a repasar primero el mundo del trabajo, el mundo laboral. Qué trabajos, qué oficios hace la gente y qué palabras tenemos que conocer para los anuncios de trabajo. ¿Okay? Y segundo, vamos a mirar cómo utilizar el imperfecto de subjuntivo. Subjuntivo, sí. Pero para empezar, algunos recordatorios. Primero, las notas. ¿Sí? Recordad, necesitáis tomar notas. Si no tenéis, el link, el enlace está aquí abajo. Imprimid las notas. Segundo, YouTube. Suscríbete a YouTube. Aprieta aquí, haz clic aquí para suscribirte y activa los avisos. ¿De acuerdo? Y tercero, contáctanos. ¿Ok? Tenemos en primer lugar una pregunta interactiva. Hoy es una pregunta de escuchar, es un listening. James, ¿cómo accedemos a la pregunta interactiva?
Vale, visitar, por favor, la página
muy bien.
de EverLearner.com y clica al botón de news, noticias.
Muy bien.
Y mira, aquí tenemos Live Revision 2018 Interactive Questions, preguntas interactivos. Clica aquí y abajo hay aquí GCSE Spanish, Session 8, Work. Clica aquí y tenéis toda la información y un recording.
Una grabación. Sí.
Por tocar aquí y después unas preguntas sobre el tema que es incluido aquí.
Muy bien, vale, perfecto. Exacto, hoy es un ejercicio de escuchar, es un listening. Perfecto, pues that's pretty much it. I think we are pretty much ready to get started. As said, please get your notes ready. There is a lot of information, okay? So, get ready for it, okay? So let's go for it, James.
Yeah, you ready?
Yeah, I am ready.
1 second.
Vale, pues vamos a mirar el mundo laboral. And this expression, what does this mean? Remember, el mundo is the world, not word, world, and laboral it's basically work related. Okay, work related. So even though the word for job in Spanish is trabajo, okay, job is trabajo, anything relating to work, we will use this adjective laboral. Okay, and in fact in English you've also got the word labor, yeah, to do with work, with working. So laboral it's got to do with trabajo. Okay, so what expressions are we going to need in this field? So first of all, let's start with what we would say if we haven't got a job. Okay, if I haven't got a job, what would I say? I would say things like estoy en paro. Estoy en paro. It literally means something like I am sort of stopped. Okay, paro is the word for unemployment in Spanish. Okay, I could also say estoy parado or parada. I am unemployed. Or I could say also estoy desempleado o desempleada. Of course, I could also say simply no tengo trabajo. Okay? Now, if I have a job, okay, I have a job, what would I say? What expressions can I use? So I could say, for example, of course, tengo un trabajo. o tengo un empleo. Okay, trabajo, empleo, synonyms. I can also say tengo un puesto de trabajo. Okay, un puesto de trabajo is also it's another expression for job. Okay, and puesto is similar to the English word post. Okay, I can also say, of course, trabajo de, I work as. I could say trabajo en, I work in. So I could say, for example, trabajo de peluquero o trabajo en una peluquería. Okay, so trabajo de is for what I do. Trabajo en would be for where I work. And I could also just use the simple soy, I am. Okay, so I can say soy peluquero. I am a hairdresser. Notice that I don't say soy un peluquero. Okay, so in Spanish I don't say I am a hairdresser. I could just say I am hairdresser. And if you're like in an in-betweeny stage, okay, you are maybe a student, you are studying to be something, you want to become something, you could use expressions such as quiero convertirme en, okay, I want to become, for example, quiero convertirme en ingeniera. Okay, quiero convertirme en ingeniera. I want to become an engineer. Or you could use the future. Me convertiré en, for example, fontanero. I will become a plumber. Okay, so convertirse is the expression for to become. And of course, other than me convertiré o quiero convertirme, I could also say just simply quiero ser, okay, so quiero ser fontanero. I want to be a plumber, for example. Okay, so we've got now some expressions to say that I don't work, that I work, what I want to do in the future. Let's think about jobs, okay? Let's think about jobs. Los trabajos, we can call them los trabajos, we could call them los empleos, another word for job. We could call it los oficios. Okay, oficios, maybe it is a little bit more like a trade, something like that, but oficio is also a word you may encounter. Now there are of course lots of jobs, and there are lots that you will already have learned back in Key Stage 3. Okay, so do revise them. And there are lots that are cognates. Okay, especially there are many that are cognates, but let's look at some that are a little bit more obscure and that you would need to know. Okay, okay, we've got, for example, to start with, we've got let me choose a different color. We could say, for example, soy abogado or soy abogada. I'm a lawyer or a solicitor. Soy albañil, a bricklayer. Or we could also talk about constructor. Constructor is more like a builder. Okay, so probably if you have a company who does building, you're constructor. If you work doing the building and the company is not yours, you would say soy albañil, probably. You could also talk about soy azafato or azafata, a flight assistant. And for this, there's also auxiliar de vuelo, literally flight assistant. We can of course talk about, we can also say soy bombero or soy bombera, I'm a firefighter. And there are jobs like, for example, periodista, journalist, or dentista, dentist, where we need to pay attention to this ista ending, okay? Because I can say if I'm a man, I will say soy periodista. If I'm a woman, I'll say soy periodista. So these words that end in ista don't change, okay? They always end in a even if the person speaking or the person you're talking about is a man. Okay, we can talk about, we can say, for example, as well, soy funcionario. Funcionario is a civil servant. Okay, of course, if you're a woman, funcionaria. O soy dependiente, and we do use dependienta for woman, that's a sales assistant. We also talk about ama de casa, okay? Ama de casa, housewife. The masculine equivalent doesn't really exist much. So generally, yeah, ama de casa, housewife. We can talk about also about enfermero or enfermera, nurse. Another job could be traductor or traductora, translator. And then we've got other jobs like, for example, médico. And you will find médico tended to be used as always ending in O, but maybe more recently people have started using it also ending in A. But okay, so these are only some of the jobs that I would encourage you to go and learn. There are many others. Okay, it's a long list. You should try and get through. Now there are some words that are worth mentioning as well. They are not related to any particular job, but they are words like, for example, un trabajador or una trabajadora, a worker. You know the word trabajador from hard working, okay? But if it's a noun, un trabajador or una trabajadora is a worker. We can also talk about un or una, un empleado or una empleada, a employee. We can talk about un jefe or una jefa, a boss or the head. We can talk about un obrero or una obrera, who would be a manual worker. And then we can talk about un principiante or una principiante, a sort of junior person, someone who's just starting doing something. Notice the word principio, okay, in here from beginning. And also, of course, we've got un aprendiz or una aprendiz, an apprentice. Okay, so lots of words here for you to use if you're doing your writing, and if you're doing, for your listening and your reading. Please, as I said, make sure you go through the list. The list. Sorry. Now these are some of the words, some of the jobs, but also when you're learning jobs, tend to learn also words that would be associated to them. Let me give you an example. Bombero. Okay, we've got the word bombero. Now, you may hear bombero, but you may hear, for example, someone talking about themselves saying apago fuegos. I put down or I put off fires. Fuego is fire. So it may be worth learning words like this, okay? A couple of words related to each job in case they try and make you work out what job they're talking about from vocabulary related to it. Another example could be, for example, the job canguro, okay? And for this, you may hear, for example, cuido de niños o cuido de niños pequeños. What's this? This is I look after young children, because canguro is a babysitter. We could also hear about, for example, secretario or secretaria. We could hear, for example, hago llamadas. I make calls. Mando emails. Organizo reuniones. I organize meetings. O archivo documentos. I file I file documents. Okay, so from this you may have to work out that the word being described is secretario. Okay, or finally, for example, I could have for jardinero, I may hear soy jardinero, or I could hear corto el césped, o diseño jardines, o cuido de las plantas. Okay, so I cut the grass, I design gardens, or I look after plants. Okay, so lots of different things to look at. Now, in the field of work, one of the things you will be expected to understand are the following: ofertas o anuncios de trabajo. Okay, ofertas o anuncios de trabajo, job offers. And there's some specific vocabulary that you need to understand from this job offers. On the one hand, first of all, we have requisitos, requirements, requirements, things that a candidate should have. Okay, what things may we find in an advert? Okay, expressions we might find is, for example, imprescindible experiencia. Okay, experience necessary. Okay, or se necesita experiencia. You could also have se necesita experiencia. You may also find disponibilidad inmediata, immediate availability. Okay, you may also have something like imprescindible tener el título de, okay, necessary or essential to have the título can be a degree or certificate, okay, to have the certificate of, and then whatever it is. Okay, and then you may also read about habilidades, skills. Okay, another area that the adverts will mention are las condiciones. Condiciones. Okay, you can work out what that is. Las condiciones. ¿Cómo son las condiciones? Las condiciones pueden ser buenas o malas, yeah, good or bad conditions. The job can be bien o mal pagado, well or badly paid. We can also find bien o mal remunerado, which is a much more complicated word. You would find this in higher rather than foundation, but it may be there. You can also talk about un buen o mal sueldo, good or bad salary, sueldo important. They can talk about las ventajas, and remember also the word desventaja of something, so advantages and disadvantages. They can talk about, for example, if they tell you what's the salary, they can say ganará un sueldo de, for example, 1,000 euros al mes, a month, a la semana, per week, al año, per month. Okay, and you can also read about posibilidades de ascenso, which are promotion opportunities. Okay, posibilidades de ascenso. Now, when we talk about la oferta, the offer itself, okay, so the job advert, what are they looking for? What may they say they're looking for or they're offering? They could be offering un puesto, a post. They may say there is una vacante, a vacancy. They can talk about, of course, un trabajo, a job. They can talk about un empleo. And they can also talk about una posición. Okay, so lots of different words to refer to the same thing, a job. Okay, so don't be surprised if you encounter all of them. And then also in the introduction, okay, when in the introduction of the job, you may see expressions like, for example, se busca, we're looking for, okay, se busca, or se necesita, or you could find buscamos. So se busca is the impersonal. One is searching. Someone is being searched, is being looked for. Se necesita is also the impersonal. Someone is needed. Buscamos is we are looking for. Or necesitamos, we need. Okay. You could also see something like se requiere. Okay. So lots of expressions as well to introduce that job offer. Okay, so all this vocabulary, super important. Okay, and then the final section. Once we see the job advert, very often the job advert will come with instructions. Okay, so you may see, for example, something like si estás interesado or interesada, if you're interested. And what will you be asked to do? Okay, so you may see things like, for example, debes mandar, you must send, debes mandar un email, una carta de presentación, un currículum, un currículum o un currículum vitae. Sometimes they will ask con fotografía. It's very common in Spain to ask for pictures in CVs, even if there's, it's got nothing to do with the job. But anyway, and you may also see something like un currículum adjunto, attached, adjunto. Okay, so debes mandar una carta con un currículum adjunto o okay. You could also see something like, for example, si estás interesado, if you're interested, debes rellenar o debes completar, you must fill in or you must complete, un formulario o una solicitud. Okay, a form or una solicitud is like an application. Okay, you could also say debes, si estás interesado, debes inscribirte, for example, en una lista. So you must put your name down. Inscribirse is to put your name down. Okay, en una lista, on a list. You could say, for example, debes firmar el contrato. Okay, you must sign the contract. And you could say, for example, debes concertar una entrevista. You must agree, or you must agree a date for an interview. Okay, concertar una entrevista. You could talk about also concertar una cita. Okay, cita is an appointment. It can also be a date. In this case, it's an appointment. Okay, and then finally, just to finish with, what happens when we're looking for a job? We could say we can talk if we get the job. We talk about conseguir el trabajo, to get a job, conseguir el trabajo. And if we actually had a job and we have lost the job, we talk about perder el trabajo. Okay, so lots and lots and lots of vocabulary here from the world of work. I hope it is helpful. I'll see you in a second.
estamos de vuelta. Bienvenidos otra vez. Hola James, ¿qué tal?
Hola.
Hola. ¿Qué tal? ¿Alguna pregunta sobre el mundo laboral?
Okay, so just a practical question. I was kind of watching that and studying some of those roles and some of the language that perhaps goes with each role, or the sort of the behavioural language that goes with each role. But I'm just wondering about how the questions actually present themselves
Okay.
in the what would be the listening and the writing, no?
Yeah.
So how would they be?
Okay, so there could be in the listening and the reading there could be.
Right, listening and reading. I think I said right. Sorry.
In the listening and reading, of course, references to jobs could come in many shapes, but the more typical, if you're doing, for example, a listening on mainly the topic of work, what you would find more often would be, for example, you could find descriptions where someone said, as I refer to when I was explaining it, for example, someone says what activities they do in their job. For example, cuido del jardín, or I don't know, limpio casa. So they describe what they do, and then you have to work out what the job is. It will happen sometimes that this specific job is mentioned, and that's all you need to do. That would probably be more for a foundation activity, but for a bit of a more higher or a little bit more of a challenge one, you would have this describing activities, and then you have to pick up vocabulary, you have to pick up words that let you work out what job they're referring to. In terms of writing, I would say in terms of reading, probably the most typical thing is the job description type of scenario where you've got descriptions of what they're looking for, what type of person they're looking for, and you've got people saying what sort of jobs they're looking for. So getting to knowing well the vocabulary of job adverts is quite it's important, so that you understand what the whole thing is saying. Okay, you can always speak out the words that you know related to the job, but knowing as well specifically whether they ask for experience, whether they ask for particular things, whether someone has worked here or there, is going to be really important in order to be able to, for example, do that matching. Okay, so very often it's more than just learning or understanding a particular word, understanding a list of jobs.
Okay. And in terms of the breadth of the jobs that you've referred to so far, is that sufficient? Do they need to know more?
So they need to know that in terms of jobs, the list of jobs that you may need to know it can be really, really vast. Okay, but there are some things I have mentioned probably while I was explaining. I've mentioned those that are, because they're probably trickier, because they're probably further away from English. It's worth remembering them, because if you hear them and you've never heard this word before, you're not going to know what that is. However, it's worth also remembering that there are certain patterns. So, for example, there are lots of jobs in Spanish that end in ero, E-R-O, or era. Okay, so you've got words like carnicero. Okay, carne is meat, carnicero is the butcher. Zapatero, zapato is shoes, shoe, zapatero, the person who mends shoes. Pescadero, pescado is fish, pescadero is the fishmonger. Okay, we've got also the torero. Toro is bull, so torero is the bullfighter. Another pattern, so do think about it. Okay, if you notice a job that ends in ero, okay, have a look at the beginning of that word, and then you should be able to work out what the job is. The other one you could that's also typical is the or ora. Okay, the jobs ending in or or ora for feminine. So, for example, pescador. Again, pescado is fish, but the pescador is the fisherman. Pescadero is the fishmonger. Okay, pintor. Pintura is paint. Pintor is the painter. Escultor, sculpture. Escultura. Escultor is the person who does a sculpture, the sculpture. I know in English you've got it sounds the same. Okay, and the other ending that I did mention earlier on is the ista, I-S-T-A, ista, that remember doesn't change between masculine and feminine. So we've got dentista, we've got florista. Flor is flower, florista, the florist. Of course, florista, if you see it written, it's pretty, it's pretty close to how you would call it in English. But it's often when you hear them that can be a little bit tricky to match. And there are many other jobs in ISTA. What else? Oh, now all I can think of is equilibrista. If I say equilibrista, you may think, what is that? But equilibrio, it's the balance, equilibrium. So equilibrista is a, how you call it, a rope?
Tightrope
walker. Okay, so you could even possibly just make up your own jobs if you try really hard.
And if you think back to when you were these guys' age at 16, could you just give us a brief description in Spanish of what you anticipated your working life would have been at that point?
When I was 16. In Spanish?
Yeah.
What I would have said?
Yeah.
Probably when I was 16, I would have said, en el futuro, me gustaría ser crítica de arte porque me interesa mucho la historia del arte. Y si pudiera, estudiaría arte. Yeah.
That didn't work out then.
No, it didn't quite go that way. No. Okay. Any other questions, James?
No, that's all.
No. Okay, fantastic. So let's go now for the second part. Let's now look at the imperfect subjunctive, and I don't want anyone to be afraid. Okay. I will explain how to form the imperfect subjunctive. But first I will explain something that is probably not as scary, and it is a little bit more manageable by everyone, okay? I would say just knowing how to do the imperfect subjunctive is not essential, okay? But I know that there are many of you who actually want to be able to go a little bit further, okay? And especially if you're thinking of continuing next year with Spanish, you are definitely going to need it, okay? So either for writing better things, either for showing off, or for further study, do stay until the end. But the first bit, that is good for absolutely everyone.
Okay, let's get on with this.
Go.
Okay, the imperfect subjunctive, what is it? Right, it is something to start with that sounds very scary. Just the fact that it's got the word subjunctive in it just probably makes people lose the will to live. But let me tell you, using it sort of, like through all its magnificence can be quite tricky. But just being able to use it in some phrases is very straightforward. So bear with me, okay? To start with, we are going to look at if clauses, okay? If clauses. Remember the word si, okay? This word si means in Spanish if. Some of you may be shouting at the screen saying no. No. Si means yes. No. The word for yes is si with an accent. This one here, without an accent, means if. Now, this word si allows us in Spanish to write to say some quite interesting sentences, okay? So we're going to look at three types of sentences, three types of we can call them, three types of if clauses. Type number one, we're going to call it the usual, okay? And what do I mean by this? Okay, so I'm going to use this type of sentence to say that if I do this, this happens, or if I do this, then I do that. Okay. So, for example, I'll give you an example of what I mean with this. So, if I finish my homework, I play computer games. Okay. If I finish my homework, I play computer games. And I could start with this sentence actually saying usually, if I finish my homework, I play computer games. Right, if we look at it in English, what have we got here? We've got first of all, I've got the if, then I've got two verbs, finish, which is in the present tense, and play, which is in the present tense, because I'm saying when this happens, that happens. Okay, so if I want to put this sentence in Spanish, I can basically follow the same pattern. So I would start with the usually, normalmente. Notice this normalmente is not essential, but just to make the sentence a bit more interesting. Normalmente, then if, si. Okay, I finish. Termino, so here, present tense, termino. My homework, mis deberes. I play. How do I say I play in Spanish? Juego. Present tense. Computer games. Juego a videojuegos. Okay? So very easily, I'm creating here a sentence that's a little bit more interesting than juego a videojuegos. Okay? I'm giving you a bit more information. I'm telling you when. It's normally. I'm telling you that it doesn't always happen. It's if I do something else, okay? So I would really, really encourage you to use this type of sentence. Normalmente, si termino mis deberes, juego a videojuegos, okay? Now, the second type of sentence, I'm going to call it intention, okay? Intention. So if something happens, something else will happen. If I do this, something else will happen. So for example, I could say if I pass my exams, I will go to college. If I pass my exams, I will go to college. So again, if we look at this sentence in English, what have we got? We've got the if here. Then I have if I pass my exams. So I've got pass, present tense. I will go to college. I've got the will go. I will go. So I've got here future tense. Okay? So in order to put this into Spanish, basically in Spanish, I do it in exactly the same way. So I can transfer it exactly using present for the first verb and future for the second one. And these would be if, si, I pass my exams. To pass, remember, is aprobar. Apruebo mis exámenes. So I've got apruebo in the present tense. I will go to college. So to go is ir. I will go, iré. So iré al instituto. Okay, iré al instituto. I will go to college. And then iré, this is future tense. So we've got present for something that happens often or something that happens normally. Present future for something that will happen if something else happens. Okay? And now here is where the imperfect subjunctive comes into play. Okay? So notice these two sentences, really you've got no reason not to use these two. Okay? Now this third one can be a little bit trickier, but if you learn a few sort of set phrases, you can actually use it very easily. So number 3 would be, how could we call it? We could call it the hypothesis. Let's call it hypothesis. Okay, hypothesis. I hope you know what the hypothesis is. And what do I mean by this? It's if something happened, something else would happen. Okay? So, if I passed my exams, I would work. I would work as a lawyer. Okay? If I passed my exams, I would work as a lawyer. And what have you got here? Again, if we look at the English, I've got the if here. Then I have past, which is a past tense. And then actually I'll do it in a different color because I've been using different colors so far. So past is past tense. And I would work, as you should know by now, I would work is the conditional. Okay, so I've got past and conditional. In Spanish, we do this very similarly, but instead of using the preterite or the imperfect in Spanish, we use the imperfect subjunctive. So this here is going to be imperfect subjunctive. And this sentence would be si aprobara mis exámenes. Okay, so this aprobara is in imperfect subjunctive, and then I would work as a lawyer. All we need is the conditional of the verb to work, trabajar. So trabajaría de abogado or de abogada. Okay, so we've got here the conditional. Okay, conditional, trabajaría, and imperfect subjunctive after the si. Okay, so I hope you can see why knowing a few phrases with the imperfect subjunctive could be useful, because it opens the door to using a lot of conditional. Okay, because it sets the scene for when would I do this if this happened. Okay, so I would really encourage you to use it. Now I'm going to give you a few phrases which are going to be the ones that you would need the most often, and then I will explain you how the imperfect subjunctive is built for those of you who want to know where it comes from and who may want to use other verbs or other forms of the verb. Okay, but for many of you, knowing a few of the set phrases for now will be enough. So what things could you need? Okay, we've got the si aprobara, if I pass, which would be useful for the topic of especially study. But also I've got things like, for example, si pudiera. Si pudiera, if I could. Si pudiera. Si tuviera. Just ignore this here. Si tuviera, if I had. For example, si tuviera mucho dinero, if I had a lot of money. Okay, with si pudiera, I could say si pudiera vivir en el extranjero, if I could live abroad. Okay, so for example, si pudiera vivir en el extranjero, I don't know, viviría en Marruecos. If I could live abroad, I would live in Morocco, for example. Si tuviera mucho dinero, compraría una moto nueva. I would buy a new motorbike. Okay, so notice I've got the si pudiera, if I could, si tuviera, if I had. I could use, for example, si fuera, if I was. So for example, si fuera más, I don't know, si fuera más extrovertida. Okay, si fuera más extrovertida, estudiaría teatro. If I was more extrovert, more of an extrovert, I would study drama. Okay, or si fuera, I don't know, si fuera más mayor, if I was older, si fuera más mayor, I don't know, tendría 3 hijos. I would have 3 children. Okay, but si fuera, this fuera is if I was or if I were. Okay, in fact, in English, you would actually, strictly speaking, you are also using the subjunctive, because here you would say if I were. Okay, which would be subjunctive. Si estuviera, this is the imperfect subjunctive of the other verb to be, of the verb estar. So for example, si estuviera menos cansada, iría a la discoteca. If I was less tired, if I were less tired, I would go clubbing. Okay, so this estuviera, if I was. And for example, another one, si viviera, if I left. Si viviera, I don't know, si viviera con mi novio, si viviera con mi novio, I don't know, cocinaría cada día. If I lived with my boyfriend, I would cook every day. Okay, something like that. So notice these. Okay, these are probably si pudiera, si tuviera, si fuera, si estuviera, si viviera, are 5 imperfect subjunctives that are worth learning. Okay? Now, for those of you who are interested to know where this imperfect subjunctive comes from, how we build it, okay, I'm going to quickly explain it, okay? So, the first thing we do is that we take the third person plural of the preterite, okay, of the verb that we want to conjugate. So let's have a look. Let's imagine we've got this, okay? So I've got vivir. The third person, which is to live, the third person plural is vivieron, yeah? Vivieron is the third person plural of the preterite. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the eron, okay? So I'm left with the BB, okay? And in its place, I'm going to add era for the yo, eras for the tú, era for the he or she, éramos for the we, erais for the you guys, and eran for the they, okay? So if I left would be si viviera. If you left, si vivieras. If he or she left would be si viviera. So notice the first and the third person singular are always the same, okay? So these that I've said here, you could also use for the third person singular. If we left, si viviéramos. If you left, si vivierais. And if they left, si vivieran. Okay? So this is what you need to do to make the imperfect subjunctive. Okay, just one last thing in case you do encounter this is that the present subjunctive has got two sets of endings for some reason, which we use with any verb. Okay, so any verb would have theoretically two imperfect subjunctives. One with this ending and another one with the endings ese, eses, ese, esemos, eseis, esen. Okay, so if I left could be si viviera, it could also be si viviese. If you left could be si vivieras or si vivieses. Okay, and so on and so forth. But I would really strongly advise you to just stick to one. It's not a mistake to mix them up, but just stick to one so that you don't have to. Just be aware that this is also imperfect subjunctive in case you encounter it in some written text or in some speaking text. But in terms of using it, I would just probably stick to this one or this one, up to you, but just stick to one in terms of using it, and then you don't have two sets of ending to jumble, okay? And that's basically it. That's basically what the imperfect subjunctive is, okay? Nos vemos en un segundo.
Bueno, ya estamos aquí, ya estamos de vuelta. So I hope that wasn't too much. And I know the imperfect subjunctive can be daunting, but remember, you don't need to be able to, as I said, to use it to the full of its magnificence. But do remember, si pudiera, si tuviera, si fuera, si estuviera, and that will give you chances to use, for example, a lot of conditional following that. So it's a really nice way of bringing your writing up. James, have you got any questions?
So I was thinking about a sentence that could fit into this nicely.
Okay.
Now, I'm not going to say whether or not this is something in my consideration at the moment or not, but I thought about putting this subjunctive into the first person plural as opposed to the first person.
Okay.
So if I was to want to say this sentence, right? So it is, if we had another child, we would need a bigger car.
Right.
I've got quite a lot of these.
Wow. If we had another child, we would need
a bigger car.
A bigger car. Okay. So
I've got a list of about 10 or 12 sentences.
Okay.
If you want more.
No, it's all right. It's all right. So if we look at if we had, so if we think of what I've just explained, How would I do the if we had? Okay, for starters, we would need to look at the verb to have, yeah, and think of how did you say they had? Because remember, we need the preterite. Okay, that's the starting point. So then we would remember that was tuvieron. Okay, tuvieron. That's they had. I get rid of the eron, the final 4 letters, E-R-O-N, they go. And in its place, so I've got now tuvi, T-U-V-I. And now I need to attach the correct ending. Of course, because in this case, I want to say if we had, okay, so it's the first person plural, the we form. So I need to stick to it, the éramos ending. So if we had, in this case, would be si tuviéramos. And then we go for the rest of the sentence. Another would be otro, child, hijo, in this sense. So, si tuviéramos otro hijo, what was that? We would need a bigger car. So, necesitaríamos, and that's the conditional, necesitaríamos un coche más grande. Okay, and I hope that some of you have been sort of doing the same exercise as we went along, and you ended up with a sort of a similar sentence. Is a good one. So yeah, I would say that probably the trickiest bit is about of this tense is about remembering what was the third person plural for the preterite. But once you've got that, the actual endings are pretty easy, because all the endings are, if you look at them, they're actually the imperfect of the verb ser. Era, eras, era, éramos, erais, eran. If you know that imperfect of the verb ser, which you should, then doing the imperfect subjunctive, it shouldn't be too complicated. Okay, and then that's the thing. If you can manage to use the a C sentence with an imperfect subjunctive, which in addition is not just in the I person, but it's in the we person, or in the you person, or in the they person, I'm sure that your teacher is going to throw some fireworks or something. Okay. Any other questions?
No, I think that was all.
Okay.
2's enough.
2's enough. That's good. 2's enough. So yeah, and also remember that if you use if you use the C, you don't always have to go for the imperfect subjunctive version. You don't always have to write about what would happen if something else happened. You can also talk about what happens if something happens, or what will happen if something else happens. Okay, so remember, and those last 2, they should be easy peasy, because you know the present, you know the future, you're sorted. Okay, so just keep thinking of how can I make my writing a bit more interesting, a bit more sophisticated than just say juego al fútbol. Okay, right, so in that case, if that's all, we are going to leave it here. So muchas gracias por vernos, y I will see you. Next session is on es el martes día 15 de mayo a las 4 de la tarde. ¿De acuerdo? Nos vemos entonces. Adiós.
The traditional classroom environment doesn't suit everyone. Students that don't fit this pace of learning begin to lose confidence. The problem is, the current learning model has holes in it. Luckily, the EverLearner.com is here to fill those holes. With the EverLearner Classroom, each student is given a chance to master each subject at their own pace. With thousands of video tutorials and tens of thousands of automated questions on the site, students can progress at their own individual pace. And because every interaction is tracked within the site, teachers can review students' progress and gain access to razor-sharp data. Teachers will have more time to engage with small groups and be better informed of where their time and support is needed. With the EverLearner, teachers can leave the traditional model behind and become facilitators, coaches, and inspirers. There's a reason we have over 100,000 registered students. To learn more, visit our website today.